We've got a terrific panel up on stage here today. I think that this is going to be kind of fun because I think it's a good resource. And as Eric was saying, maybe forcing us all to think a little bit differently, to get some ideas and look at our business different. Because I think when we come to a forum like this, we're so used to dealing in our own internal echo chambers. We're talking with the same people about e-commerce in different ways. But today we're going to have an opportunity to talk with some people that are different, down the road in different ways, I guess you could say. But I'll start off from all the way down on the far right there. We have Jason Seger, Vice President of Operations from Border States Electric. He's been with the company since 1999. Sitting next to him, we have Jeff Drees, the President of Schneider Electric. 20 years in engineering, sales, and operational leadership. Since 2010 was named U.S. Country President. Next to him, we have Dave Frazer, President of Stokes Electric in Knoxville, Tennessee. And immediately to my right, we have Bryan Samples, the Director of Product Information for Lowe's companies. So we think we have a very diverse panel here, and I think we can get some good discussion going here. I wanted to kind of start things out. Maybe I'm going to ask each of the panelists kind of what brought you here today? Why are you sitting on stage? What gets you jazzed up about e-business, e-commerce, and what IDEA has to offer? Why don't we start out right here with Bryan? We'll work our way down, and we'll follow up with the questions.
So this is my first year with the conference. I've been working with IDEA for about 5 years now. We have changed a lot at Lowe's in the last 5 years. A lot of places we're on the cutting edge, and a lot of places we're still learning. I appreciate the opportunity, as I did yesterday, to sit in a lot of the user sessions and listen and learn and find some partnerships along the way. Our business, like a lot of the businesses in the room, are trying to find ways to be multi-channel, to find ways to not just push the information we need for our store perspective, but also find other ways to drive customer loyalty, customers into our stores, and using information to do that, we can never really learn enough. So our opportunity as Lowe's is not to really only be the only one out on the island, is to also to partner with our suppliers and other companies in a similar space and find ways to definitely improve.
Great. Dave?
Okay. This is my first conference, similar to what Bryan just said. I've been involved with IDEA since the inception back in the late 90s when several distributors wrote checks to help fund it, and we were one of them. I think what's exciting about where IDEA is now for us is that with the standardization of data, it gives us all the ability, whether it's a supplier, an end user, a distributor, to speak a common language, which is critically important. I spend a lot of time with our customers at the end user level, and they all have a different concept of what e-business is. Some of them think e-business, we do business with the federal government. They want a portal directly into our business system from theirs. They're not interested in a website or a shopping cart. We do business with a lot of contractors who are trying to figure out how to use e-business because it means double entry in their system plus our system. So there's a lot of opportunity here to learn from people, from your experiences, which I think is pretty neat. And maybe we can take some of that back and use it in our business.
Next we have Jeff. I wanted to make on a side note here, I was looking through people's backgrounds. Jeff is one of 2 Salukis on the panel from the Southern Illinois University here.
Yes.
So they've gotten off to a good start. I believe your team's 2-2 so far this season, so doing okay.
Yep.
Jeff?
So I'm here because we get free stuff. Okay, maybe not, but number one is that certainly we want to learn from each other on this panel and learn from the audience about what's on your mind relative to this topic, because I think it's a very big topic that we're all wrestling with and no one really has the answer to this equation. As we sit back as a global company, we look at some really big trends, that will impact our business, and we talked about it on the call. We're at a tipping point in our industry. And how do we embrace this tipping point in our industry, and how do we prepare as both partners in this industry that's going to change dramatically? And just one stat that's pretty compelling to me, e-tail will replace retail in the next 5 years. So the way people buy online replaces the way people buy in stores in the next 5 years in terms of total volume. And Those are some really big changes in terms of we're on a, massive change that we're sitting in front of us, and I think it's pretty exciting. But, how we kind of embrace that and we think about it strategically, we got to learn from each other. So IDEA is, I love the fact that we're building standards, the way that we communicate in our industry, and we're really trying to make it much simpler. So big topics, big day, we're here to learn.
And Jason from Border States.
Well, Jeff is here for the free stuff, and I'm here to smell the crayons, I think, after Eric's presentation. So when it comes to e-commerce, we all probably are. We all need to be passionate about the topic. It's going to impact our industry in a growing way, I think. And if you look at a simple, kind of traditional way we've all measured e-commerce success in the past, we looked at this top-line sales revenue and linked that to this one online site. We've often, I think, we have anyways, fallen short of our own expectations in measuring success in that narrow perspective. I think it's dangerous to look at it that way, and I think we need to be more broad in how we look at e-commerce. This conference can bring that broad perspective of e-commerce with how we integrate with our partners up and down the supply chain, how we look at just the back office information in our enterprise business system. And that's becoming more transparent to our customers without the filter of a customer service person anymore. How do we leverage that same information to our own sales channel to really drive improved profitability, add value, maybe bring material to a market faster than we were in the past? And how do we really make our business more accessible on the customer terms, how they want it, when they want it? Understand things that are really driving, I think, change in the industry. You talk about B2C environments. And really, as B2C consumers, our customers are as well. And each B2C transaction they enter into, I think, is shaping their expectation of the user experience. And that's really coming over into the B2B environment and really shaping how they're going to expect us to act, I think, in that environment as well. So
that's good.
Great. We'd like to kind of kick off some of our discussion here on allocating resources. I thought I'd start out with Jeff from Schneider. And I thought it would be particularly interesting. We have Schneider Electric, $28 billion in global sales. Jeff's in charge of the division, which has got to be one of the very big markets. You've got a lot of decisions that come across your desk every day, I'm sure. Yeah. And how do you decide how you allocate resources on e-business? And how do you prioritize as you're doing that?
I think what I'm looking for in my business leadership team, first of all, is really an understanding of the trends. So I talked about one trend that is so real to us in the U.S. I think another one is just mobile-to-mobile e-commerce. It's a $100 billion business today. It's going to become $300 billion in the next 6 years. So first of all, do the executive team they really think about the trends that are emerging as we put together a business plan. Okay, then what I'm looking for more is we drill down into, I get the trends. What are the implications tied directly to our business? So for example, one of the trends that we have a very focused effort on is the data I just shared with you. There's a new buyer emerging in terms of a demographic. It's 35 and younger. So a lot of that context, what I just shared with you, is a new buyer economics around a new buyer that's 35 and younger. And I believe that is the future kind of key decision maker with some of our customers' customers. Okay, so they're expecting to have a different relationship with the manufacturer and distributor partners. They're saying, how do I have much more content over the web? How do you enable me to configure my project over the web and actually help me design and configure? And so we have to think differently about tools that we deploy. And too often the discussion with the business leaders in the past has been, I need more feet on the street. I need more sales resources. And I'm saying that we have to have as much time on how do we use web as an effective sales tool as we have to deploy sales resources. So a simple equation for me is I have a very large bucket in a $6 billion business I think about with my sales expense. I need to have a bigger portion spent on brand, web, and marketing and make that part of my strategy going forward. And it's not just about putting headcount on the street every day to cover the industry. Yeah. It's a big change.
Yeah. How does that, you mentioned before about your e-tail strategy, how does this new demographic dovetail in with what you're doing with e-tail?
So, the simple example, I've got twin boys, and I can tell when they're home, and they were home over the summer, because boxes show up on my doorstep. Right? They order everything online. They don't go to Best Buy, and I've been to, I go to Best Buy, and they have boxes delivered to our doorstep. And So it's the expectation of this new demographic around, they're engaged in digital media around, we've got to be domain expertise on Facebook and LinkedIn. We laugh about social media today. Social media is a weapon for us if we use it right. So we have to think, how do we actually place trusted advisor resources so they can get content from the social media to make buying decisions and understanding it, also hiring decisions. So as you track that talent, it's hiring and buying decisions that we're placing on social media that 2 years ago we didn't think that way. We thought it was just a science project, so now we use it as a way to market.
Anyone else on the panel picking up on this new demographic coming in, either kind of your external audience, customers, or your internal people that you're having to train internally on this?
Jim, I'll give you an example of something that happened to me yesterday. I went into the office prior to going to the airport to come here, and I was walking through the warehouse, and I saw a ballast on the shelf from a major manufacturer. I picked it up, and it had a QR code on it. And I thought, okay, I'll bite on it. So I took my cell phone, I scanned it, and it popped up the specs on the ballast, and it popped up how to install it. And I thought, wow. Wow. That changes, as a distributor, our value proposition completely to the end user. We've now put all that information right in their hands on the job site while they're installing it 24/7. So I picked up my cell phone and I turned off the QR reader and I called the local rep for the ballast and I said, hey, what's the deal? And he said, well, that's not for you, Dave, that's for the kids. And I said, well, who are the kids? And he said, these new guys that are coming up that have the smartphones, the iPhones and the iPads that want to be able to operate without being tied to you or the manufacturer or anybody else. And so that's how it's changing, and that's how quickly it's changing. And we're no longer kids.
Bryan, how about Lowe's, both on that new demographic, and as I had mentioned before, asking Jeff about allocating resources. How do you, as new trends bubble up, how do you decide where to put it with all your management and the pricing strategies at Lowe's?
So 3 years ago, you could have found everybody who worked on Lowes.com in my department in about 2 rows. And I think there was some emphasis on the work and things that we need to get done and what that site was there for and what we were trying to achieve. Now, if you came over and you looked at our resources and technology spend in our .com space, you have hundreds of people that are focused both on that space and my space. Understanding, and I come from an insurance background, financial background, where data is the way you make decisions, not based on what you sell, but what are you selling and the information that goes along with it. We're starting to figure out that the information has to be in all channels. It has to be quality, obviously, but it also has to be a place where you can take advantage of it and find out who that customer you're looking for. My example is almost a little bit of the opposite. Is when my dad got a smartphone and went to our store and scanned something in the store and told me that this company had it cheaper and went through that whole exercise. I'm like, what? You did what? And his complaint was one of the top ones that we get every day. Hey, I saw something in your store, but I didn't see it online. Why are you not able to purchase everything you have in your store online today? And I'm like, thanks, Dad. Please don't send that note to the CEO. Because that's my department. He's like, well, you need to work on that, because here's what I was trying to sell. I'm like, great, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Get rid of the cell phone, go back to the flip phone. So resources that used to be more focused on supply chain channels and finding ways to obviously still improve the store experience. Now we've got 4 or 5 channels. We really have to be at the same level or we're failing whichever customer is coming through that channel.
I'd like to add, I spent part of my vacation this summer with 2 of my sons in New York, and one 20-year-old, and he negotiated getting around New York on Yelp. I mean, he wanted to find a raised pizza, and if you've been to New York, there's about 200 different derivations of that, but just walking the streets with his Yelp indicator, you know, figuring out what was where, and I wonder how, if end-user customers and a distributor, if they're not familiar with an area, would they be using that to try to find some, you know, different locations? How about, Jason, what have you seen, and anything similar? I
think very similar to the other panelists. You see the demographic changing. I think you see the mobile infrastructure obviously changing. When Eric was up here, I think I saw almost everyone in the room at some point pull out a mobile device and take a video, snap a picture. pass it on to someone else possibly. So the convergence of those two things are really changing how quickly things are changing, and really, I think, shaping, again, that user experience. We've looked traditionally, I think, at this online order placement as kind of where you're putting the dollars. And as Jeff mentioned, the science experiment was social media, or it was mobile device, and now it's becoming what used to be the nice to have is the got to have.
Yeah.
I think it's really moving into that kind of a realm where you got to put dollars into those infrastructures in a very serious capacity today.
Dave, I was wondering, we were talking a little bit about your website, and you were saying that the online store and everything, it's really kind of reshaping how you look at a lot of things on how you interact with customers. What are some of the nice to haves versus the got to haves that you're finding in the eBiz experience?
For us, it's evolving every day. We started out with an online shopping cart, and that fit a segment of our customer base, and then you wind up doing business with the government who wants something completely different. They want a portal directly into your system, and then you start talking to the retail side of our business because we have decorative lighting centers, and those people want the QR codes and the ability to do price comparisons while standing in your place of business, as you cringed at. So there isn't any one way into your business anymore. There's a lot of different ways. And then there's the whole EDI side of it, which is how we communicate with your company. So e-commerce anymore has a lot of different dialects. We're all trying to speak one language in many different dialects.
Bryan, as you see things from a little different angle from a lot of us in the room here, what are some of the real things that keep you up at night? Some of the changes coming down the pipe for Lowe's and how you deal in this e-business, whether it's online, whether it's with your vendors, or what are some things that you think we may be seeing a couple months, years down the road in the electrical space?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I've seen as a change over the last 2 years is the way we go to business now, or our strategy of going to business. When it used to be, I'd come in and show me your goods, show me your products. Sounds like you really put a lot of thought into it. You manufactured what we're looking for. That's great, and we're obviously always looking for that. But when you show up, you have to show up being ready to sell multi-channel. We're actually at Lowe's at this point. If you come in as a supplier and you have a great product and we decide to go to market, whether it be an online-only product or maybe a store product, we literally are saying, do you have all the information and all the things you need to be multi-channel sitting in this room today? If you do not, we're not going to set up an item, we're not going to cut a PO starting today. Now, 3 years ago, that discussion would have never happened. It was walk in a room with paper, I got a great product, I'm going to find a way to get that baby on the shelf, and I'm going to go. And really, our merchandising and our whole go-to-market strategy, using the information to make best decisions on the product, has led to a change in saying, we go to market the day I decide to buy, and if you're not ready to go to market that day, I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's a huge change for those inside that are trying to support the buying experience. But it's a monster change for the suppliers I work with every day. There's a lot in the audience today, and we have a lot of offline discussions going, wow, this is very different. You're asking me to basically come with everything day one, be ready to go to all these channels, not just come with the best product. I'm like, yeah, that's the new business model, and you have to be ready for that.
A related question for Jeff. When you talk with your counterparts at different parts of Schneider, maybe globally or maybe different market niches, do you see much cross-pollination as far as trends that are appearing elsewhere that haven't quite reached our space or our market here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I'd say a good one would be, so we have a division in the U.S. in IT. And what I would say, they're maybe a little bit ahead of our industry in terms of where they are with this discussion, because much more of their content is being delivered EBiz, e-commerce. And what they went through was a little bit of the maturity of their business was, first it was, let's get content online. Let's allow customers to search product and really kind of search it maybe to SKU level. And then you could maybe take that and first of all, let's make sure the content we have online, it has great photos, has good searchable attributes, is really, the content on products is strong. But the next version where they are right now is they're actually doing more predictive analytics. So when a customer comes up on a website and starts to look at content and downloads a white paper on a given topic like cooling in the data center, all of a sudden that sends a red flag. The more content we have on a customer, it sends a red flag to our customer care center and saying, we need to contact this customer right now with a message about we're here to help, and it's not about product. It's about an application. So what we're seeing is much more content on the IT side being delivered on the web to support the buying behaviors of a customer. So now we're using that in all of our parts of our business to say we need to invest in people that have statistics background. We just hired a doctorate in stat that has statistics and behavioral science as part of their background, where we can really kind of write algorithms around predictive analytics. So we're learning from one of our other businesses in the US, and we're applying it to every business we have, because I think IT took it, maybe they're a couple years ahead of where we are today in the industry. So it's something we're just learning right now.
Jason, how about at border states? You know, you're both, I know you're diverse outside the kind of the mainstream, pipe and wire, so to speak, utility, also regionally. Seeing anything different, trends coming down the road that you think will swing back into this space?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, first, I agree with Jeff's comments. It's important we, I think, take that to heart, because I think more and more we're fighting for dollars, talked about earlier, on these e-business projects. The more we can start talking about not just the online presence and the impact those dollars have, but internally. How do you really use that to leverage your traditional sales channel as well? And we found in other markets that what's driving a lot of this is the customers are looking for ways to make their internal process more simple. So look at simple catalog content, getting pictures, good descriptions. How do you leverage that to help a utility company, for example, better define their standards?
Yeah.
So when they go to a project, they have a more simple way to find the items, reduce costs internally, and really drive value to their business. We're finding applications like that really becoming applicable to other markets as well.
Also, and I guess for anyone on the panel here, as the whole market, both certainly with all the acquisitions we see in the distribution side, but manufacturing gets more global, as far as what they're expecting globally. I was curious about that as well, if there's any new trends that are popping up there that we should be aware of on that.
Jim, I mean, just from Schneider Electric, I mean, we think about the change we've gone through just in the last 5 years. We've had numerous acquisitions. We had 120 brands. Okay, so we've driven that brand strategy down to 10, and we still have a ways to go with inside of our company. As you think about digital content, where customers go, and Bryan, to your point about your dad, my father-in-law walked through Lowe's. He was a 40-year electrician in our industry, right? He walked through Lowe's and he saw Schneider and Square D, and he's like, Jeff, what are you doing? It's like, which one do I buy? Why do I do? Which one should I procure? What's the difference? And so as we think about global context now, as customers search online digitally, where they're looking at our shelves online, that's kind of the new platform, our brand it's got to become an enabler. So we got to drive more to a Schneider Electric brand. So we've got some great brand legacy with Square D and APC that we've got to transition now into a Schneider Electric platform, because today we confuse our global customers, we confuse our customers, period. So it's put pressure on us. So when you think about the US compared to China, so China, strong emerging country, they've only been known as Schneider. So if a global customer in China is saying, I've only known you as Schneider, and I come to the US and you're a collection of different brands, they really are looking for something to kind of get solved here. And so this brand discussion becomes a premium for us.
Well, and I would like to throw some of what Jeff just said. We spent a year not only just trying to figure out what our brand was going to be and what we're doing internally and working with some of the suppliers, but we went back through and said, and I won't mention, well, I guess I could because they're not in this audience, but one of the suppliers we had submitted hundreds of items, and if you went to my house, you'd see all their power tools in my house because that's what I like. And but they misspelled or spelled their name, 6 letters, you can figure it out maybe, 8 different ways. So our ability to take that information inside to say why people were buying it, what we were actually showing on the shelf versus online versus signage we were building was all over the place. And we were asking ourselves, are we selling a lot of this? Well, which one is the right brand? Well, it's all right. And literally that simple of an exercise started bringing light on you can't do it if it's not in the right format. And it's not just about the analytics, it's about getting it to the market too. And if you're walking in and you got a package that says this and a sign that says this and online says this, because you can't spell those 6 letters the same way, then you're in trouble. And it was kind of enlightening. I took that example all around to all my executives and say, this is where we're at right now. We've got to change this very soon.
That's interesting. We just, on electrical wholesaling, we just completed a survey of end users, readers of Electrical Construction and Maintenance magazine. We asked them which of the distributors provide the best service. And what I was really interested in is that, we kind of think in terms of mergers and acquisitions and who bought who, but in many cases, the company that respond, if that company had been acquired, it happened to be there were some of the Sonopar subsidiaries. No one said Sonopar. They all said Viking Electric or Capital Light or whatever. And same with many of the Rexel. Rexel was interesting. There were some people that said, yes, we'll buy from Rexel, but I found that kind of interesting. Just to kind of shift the discussion a little bit, when you're selling an e-business initiative internally, what are some of the toughest things, and I know it'll depend on online store, whatever, but what are some of the biggest challenges you found when you're really retooling your company, so to speak? Who'd like to take that one? We can kind of work our way down, perhaps. Jason, you want to take that?
Yeah, a quick stab at it, and I think, we've had a tendency in the past to really talk about the cool technology and go in and sell it from a technology perspective purely. And that really doesn't cut it anymore from our perspective. You need to look at this from the holistic business strategy of you're not just selling a technology, you're selling a business solution that really links up to your top line, sales and profitability targets. So when you go in, it's not just about the technology and how it's going to impact this piece, it's the overall business impact and really drawing the line between that top line business strategy.
Any particular situation it's the hardest for employees to get their hands around when you're doing it?
It changes the nature of some of the jobs in a distributor. When you have orders coming in electronically, a lot of us have inside sales folks whose job changes. They are no longer order entry. They are now reviewing and expediting orders. And so you go through a cultural shift and getting people's heads wrapped around how their jobs are changing.
Are you finding, Jeff had mentioned before about some of the hiring that you've had to do with some of the background and statistics and all, are you finding different people that you've had to hire as well for background to kind of move you more into e-business, or is it still in the case of a distributor at least, very typically, very often, kind of work up the way from the warehouse, but are we hiring for specific needs within the e-business area? And also,
just to go off a little bit, I mean, first of all, I'm looking at a great team of Schneider Electric employees over here, and this team was probably a team of one not too long ago. Now we're building up our capacity in this area because it's so critical for us. We used to kind of look at it from, it's an efficiency metric. Okay, it's going to be about ease of transaction. We can really kind of simplify the way we conduct business. Just purely, let's kind of remove some layers about transactional efficiency. And people can present on that all day long and put very precise ROI on it. Now what I'm looking for as we hire talent, I'm looking for people that can kind of convert complexity to simplicity. And what I mean by that is really understanding the buying behaviors of our customers and saying, when we put this content online, we understand the buying behaviors, because here's the 5, 10 different examples we have where it led to some kind of transaction. So I'm looking for leaders that not only are very sharp technically, but this complexity, simplicity is an art form. And I'm asking more business leaders to say, when you kind of come in and present your content and you want money, everyone wants money. Okay, we got the efficiency side. I'm looking more for thought leadership. So as you kind of push this out about content online where you can have customers configure a project online, how do you do that? How do we become the Apple of our industry? And it's kind of that, it's that content. So it's subject matter expertise and also someone that can speak a business language. That's the resource we're looking for, and it's a really hard skill to find. So you hire them, and you also have to develop them.
Yeah.
I think we've traditionally, just to maybe plan that a little bit, is we've really looked at technology as the leaders in our company around e-commerce and digital, and that's shifting for us. Look at our team here. We've got a digital strategy manager here, really focused on what is that user experience going to have to be to gravitate customers to you. So not from technology being the solution, get them to use it, but what do they want to see from us across all business units, get us all in sync and really drive that user experience to the next level.
Bryan, how about at Lowe's? What kind of people are you looking for as you're driving this initiative forward?
Well, I think what's been the biggest challenge is post the buying experience, our planogramming process to put a product out and be creative about the way we show it and all the marketing information we use to get people in the store, whether it be, commercials or tabs and what have you, to get people into that space. And now when you try to do an online planogram, what is that like? What do you need there? What are you trying to drive in that space? Why do you need to show how-to videos? Do you need to give them manuals? That's not something specifically you have laying out around the store. The way you drive that business model versus the in-store business model is completely different. And the skill sets needed to be able to do that are completely different as well. They have the same principles. I mean, an online planogram, when we started talking about that at Lowe's, we're like, well, what's that? What are you trying to do there? And I was like, well, how do you go to business? What does it look like? What do you need to do to service your customers? What are they looking for in that space versus when they come to the store, and what are they looking for in that space? And it's very different. Even to the point where we're now saying, where we used to be, we're going to complement our online space with what's in the store. Now we're saying, everything you have to give us as a supplier, even if we don't stock it, we want to put it on our website. That's a very different storefront. That's a very different way to look and manage your business. And it's a much more dynamic business in many ways too, because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of items on our site compared to maybe 40,000 in any one store.
That's a big change, man. Very big change for sure. Do you find yourself in your particular companies leading your customers to e-commerce, or are they kind of leading you to e-commerce, or is it a combination of both, and where's the dividing line?
Go ahead. Well,
Jeff, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, one of the things that we have a very strong distribution network, and what we do is that we work with folks like Border States and Jason. We say, how do we invest in this together? And we actually look at the market collectively. So we use the strong distribution channel that we have, and we say, if we don't want to go alone, we actually want to, let's partner, and if you're going to put content on your website that has a product catalog, let's go to IDEA. Make sure we go there, because we've got a standard way that you can extract information, allow customers to kind of do search online for you. And we really look at it in terms of how do we partner together as we go down this path. And it's got to be, we can't just kind of go alone. Sure. So part of it is a partnership on some content. I think on others, it is leading the customer to the water, because I've heard many, I mean, my father-in-law would say this, hey, I'm never going to go and buy online. You know, I need a set of plans and specs on my desk, and I'm going to do the takeoff, and I'm going to create my own bill of material. And so this ease of use and customer experience is so critical as we kind of lead the effort on how do we actually show them efficiency of their business, that you actually can trust content over the web. And so part of it is leading, and part of it is a partnership, is the way that's how we look at it.
What's everyone's take on the mobile apps? Last month, Grainger put out an app where right on a smartphone. I know that Mayor Electric Supply has been developing one, but what's everyone else's experience? Is that going to be nice to have, or got to have down the road 1, 2, 3 years?
I think it's going to be got to have. I mean, I see, you talk about this whole user experience, and I think the companies that are already on that path today, I think have figured some of that out. They understand the user experience from more of a B2C environment, and they've translated that to the B2B environment. I think at some point we're all going to have to get there to make that user experience what they want to see. And I think to some degree, it's not going to be us leading at some point. It is going to at some point shift to the customer saying, I'm going to go there and adapt to that because they have the user experience at my fingertips that I want to utilize.
Yeah, it's really foundational for us. I mean, it's one of those that caught us, I wouldn't say off guard, but it was a place where, while you can make your .com site and they can get there through a smartphone, you really can drive a lot of business your way if you have your app that they're going to as part of their regular day-to-day. And if they're in the store and they're using that, or at home using that, it's a different catalog and an opportunity for them to be a customer of yours, not the customer of any large search engines and so forth. So the question is going to be as much about what you do with that app and how far you go with it from a transactional perspective, and what are you trying to do in that space, or is it really just an online catalog, or are you trying to actually push transactional business in that space, or is it going to explode to the literally let's do business here as well as we can do business in the store. And there are huge challenges to get all into that kind of serviceability through a small app on your phone. Jason,
you'd mentioned when we had our pre-meeting a couple of weeks ago about the a tipping point for online transactions in general? You think it's kind of fast approaching where it's going to start that hockey stick up? Well, why is that? What do you think? Is it part of this, the mobile app? Or?
Yeah, I think on camera here, we'll put our line in the sand and maybe say, what's it going to look like for how that's going to ramp up? And it's tough to put the finger on, I think. We've talked a lot about the reasons why it probably is going to ramp up. Jeff mentioned this demographic of the customer. As you get a younger demographic coming in, they're more proficient with the online transaction, more comfortable with that, that's going to impact it. Now, as we start to figure out as an industry the user experience, that's going to, I think, be a tipping point as well. And I think the mobile application piece, when you put it right in front of them at their fingertips, how they want to use it, when they want to use it, I think those three factors are going to start to drive a tipping point in the next probably 3 to 5 years.
Very good. Anyone else on that has any thoughts on that ramp up?
I mean, I think I agree completely with Jason. We are definitely at a tipping point. If we just think about, we're on a panel for about an hour, and how many different transactions or business discussions are you having right now, mobilely, digitally? And so there's this huge landslide of, it's actually how do we make our lives easier, because we're always connected 24/7. Tell me about a time when you worked an 8 to 5 workday and it was Monday through Friday. That doesn't exist anymore. You are constantly connected and you're having business discussions in real time. It could be at very early hours in the morning or at night, on weekends. I mean, you're so connected. And it is about, our lives have changed. And it's much more about, I would say, work-life integration. I laugh at work-life balance because I don't know how you do that quite exactly. I haven't figured that out yet. But I think it's how do you integrate your business in your work-life environment? And I think that's why mobile apps, if companies have not embraced mobile apps, you're missing completely. So you got to have it on there. You got to have content that you can actually do transactions or configuration on your iPhone, BlackBerry, tablet. It's the reality of our business today. It can no longer be an option.
Interesting. I'd like to open up the panel, the questions from the floor. If any, we've got a terrific resource here collected, and if there's anyone that has any questions that would like to ask the panel, why don't we have at it? I think Andrea, I think we'll have a mic, or Steve's or a mic available that we can, if we've got any questions from the floor that we could take at this point.
Steve, any giveaways here that's tied to this thing? You're like, more vets already. Yeah.
I think I saw a hand back. You're back on the aisle there first, yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the arguments that I've been trying to make with my support of e-commerce on the sales side is that, as I characterize it, it would change the nature of our salespeople's jobs from the tedium of taking orders to the creativity and profitability of making orders. And I'm wondering if you just care to comment on that idea.
So I think they're looking at it two ways. I think you're right. It's much more about demand creation. I think with the salespeople you have in the field. I also look at our sales, a lot of solutions and sales methodology talks about people. Content is the new sales methodology, I think, of the future. How you deliver content to a customer who's on your website. I put that now in parallel with hiring, attracting, developing a sales headcount. So the sales headcount of the future, much more about demand creation. Same way with the content online. I think the content discussion, that's why you hire someone who's in statistics who's going to help you think about predictive analytics, that content now becomes king. I almost put it on equal par with the salesperson. So you got to have, it's not one or the other. You'll still have human-to-human intervention. It's going to happen. You're not going to avoid that. But customers are shortening when you can come and talk to them. I mean, think about the last time, I just recently experienced of buying a car. I came in as a very informed consumer when I went to buy the car, and I shortened the time I was in the dealer because I hated spending time with the dealership. Right? I just wanted to give me 10 minutes because I'm going to research everything on the periphery and come in and be an educated customer. So the salesperson now has to be much more precise. You get maybe 10 minutes with a customer. What you had in the past was 4 hours. So it's really changing how you think about, you deploy your resources. But that's a long-winded answer, sorry, but I'm looking at it both sides.
And if you look at, think about the buying experience now too. A lot of companies we work with or in my space have sometimes 2 buyers. for the same product. And imagine walking in with your traditional sales approach and having the person over here who's buying the traditional way, and so the channels we've been using forever, and then a 20-something sitting next to them. Excuse me for anybody's in that range. I've now left it a long time ago. But they're going, now here's what I need to sell your product in this space. And you have to be prepared because both of them now have to give you the thumbs up to go forward. And that's a very different discussion, and for the sales force to understand that you can't really just be selling in this channel and that one. They're not going to buy it anymore unless all channels agree we're going forward. So the preparation and how you approach and how the salespeople are going to have to conform, kind of like we've had to do inside for our different buying experiences and different line review processes, have changed a lot. And so does the sales force. We'll have to change along with it.
So are you a distributor or a manufacturer? Distributor. Most of our guys, we're a distributor, are craving for something to talk about when they're in front of a customer. And so when you put that content in their hands, it gives them another thing to talk to their customer about and be a resource for them.
Any other questions? I saw a couple of hands shoot up before. Oh, look at this. Okay, well, we got, I think with the striped shirt, is that Greg? Why don't we'll start off with you and we'll work our way through.
So just to clarify, Jason and Dave, you're both distributors for Schneider, right?
Yeah.
So I guess this question's to you. We're not distributors of Schneider, but your website's fabulous. I mean, I just looked at it, and I'm curious. I'm all about content this week, and you had mentioned that. But you know, Jason and Dave, do you feel that the content that's available on Schneider's site is also as accessible to you as a distributor, you know, so you can be as competitive?
You know, I can't comment on Schneider,
do I need to leave?
directly. Yeah, you don't just step out and we'll answer the question then.
That's a great question.
I mean, it's what this forum is about, though, right? That's about I mean, how do we create that collaboration and make sure that we have that integration between manufacturing partner and distributor. I think, generally speaking, we've got a long ways to go in the manufacturing arena to make sure that we all get the information in a seamless fashion, in a timely fashion, so that whatever the application is, it's customer-facing, is seamless. So what you see on Schneider, you see on border states, or you see on Stokes. And so I think we've got a ways to go in getting over that as a tipping point as well.
Yeah,
but we're getting there.
I think to your point, Jason, the tug of war between the distributor and manufacturer over data and content and pricing of the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, is over, in my opinion. We can't be mired in that you'll give me what you want me to have but not what I need because you don't want to expose what you're doing over here to over here. Yeah. And I just think the world's moving too fast. It's not about e-commerce. The term digital has been used. It's about digital. Everybody's digital. Yeah. My kids are digital. Right. The 76-year-old that passed me in a triathlon last weekend on his bicycle while he was eating a peanut butter sandwich had his smartphone mounted on his handlebars, and he was following his course himself on the route. Everybody's digital. There's no hide and seek. There's no magic shell game anymore.
Well, I think Bryan's comment, too, real quick, was important. He talked about in his B2C environment, when they go to work with the manufacturer, they say, we need everything. Not just what's on our shelf. We need everything, all the content. I think that is starting to creep into the B2B environment, and that's going to be the reality of the very near future. So,
Greg, we have, I mean, just as an example, we have 500,000 SKUs in the U.S. We have 50,000 of those in the IDW warehouse database. So we have, but we did prioritize, right? You can't start all 500,000 and kind of populate and make sure you got good data integrity, it's solid. It's kind of fix the basics of you got to have the good product content, and you really make sure that we're connected. So this is, you know, I love the IDA because it is about a common format. So once we post, Jason can grab without having to do a translation. So that's part of the value. But we still have 450,000 SKUs to go, and we'll be done when, Vicki? No pressure in front of 250 people. I want to document it. No, but it's you know, it's prioritization.
I think we had another.
Yep. My question was for you, too. We have a lot of manufacturers in this room that haven't come to the same epiphany that you obviously have. Can you elaborate on your corporate culture, on how you got to the point to decide to make this commitment, both in time and expense internally, to provide that content to IDEA and subsequently to the electrical distributor community?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been asking for 12 years, and we're still kind of in that yin and yang. Do you really, really, really want it? So could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would. Our culture is one where, because we've done so many acquisitions, our culture is not necessarily about one culture, okay? And I know it might be frightening for me to say that and have my team kind of reflect on that. We are not one culture. We are a collection of multiple brands that we've developed. So for example, our Square D brand is so strong on our product and distribution. When we bought the buildings business, very strong on solutions. Our APC business, very good about innovation and marketing. And then we bought a company called Telvent, who is a software platform, and that's all, when they wake up and live and breathe, they think about software as a service. And their revenue is on monthly basis, not on an annual view. And so everything is software as a service, so when you kind of put those together, really some of those acquisitions, if we just forced everything to be this product culture that's so strong with Square D, I think we'd miss how we have to evolve around this digital connection. So we're taking the best of those four cultures and kind of putting it together. And this new acquisition has really kind of taught us on how we can deliver on a recurring revenue base with our distribution partners. This is not about selling direct. Distribution has a vital role in us partnering together to deliver the content to the end customer. So this is not about us going alone, but Telvent has really pushed us to say we can make it possible, and here are the 10 examples where we've done it. So that really has changed our DNA, I would say.
Good morning. Like a lot of people here in the room, we've put our toe into the social media pool. And the question I have for you is, how do you measure success with social media today?
You guys.
That's a challenging
First of all, ask if we're on Facebook and Twitter. Just do that. I mean, one of them is real simple for us is how many actual followers do we have on our Twitter account? Okay, so I have a Twitter account. The company has a Twitter account. We really push and pull on the number of followers on Twitter account because that becomes a trusted advisor resource for the people following us. That's number one. Number two is that we now have more analytics as people go into Twitter and they look at, they might click on a URL attached to a Twitter account, and once they get on our website, we can actually track where they're going, how they're viewing, and when they buy, or if they buy. So we are much more precise around the analytics we're getting from social media, and it's providing this, subject matter content by just making sure we have more followers. So we're starting, right? It's just those two simple things to start, and we're building up our capacity, but we said, let's start there.
And I don't think we're deep enough in to really be intelligent about it, to be honest with you. I think we're getting our toe in the water. We're kind of on the back edge of that a little bit. And we're seeing some success with simple things. You talk to customers, you talk about a deeper relationship, and they found this, and therefore that drove this action. Yeah. Or it might be even more of an external piece with a recruiting piece. We're finding success in some of those avenues as well. So very much on the back edge and getting into that environment, I think so.
I just have a quick question about social media and Twitter. I mean, obviously, this may be more pertinent to Schneider Electric. One of the things that we've come across in our particular company is we have a very large graphical distribution as a company. So how do you, when you're dealing with social media, if somebody has an issue with, say, somebody in Nashville, and somebody is following the tweet that lives in California, how do you kind of protect yourself as to not turning that person off in California going, oh, well, that's for Nashville. I don't care about that. I'm never coming back. How do you handle sort of the regionalization of the Facebooks and the Twitters and whatnot?
Is that a question for me?
I mean, Lowe's as well. I mean, obviously, you're thousands of stores as well. So anybody really, what your thoughts and take are on that matter?
I think it's the importance of brand presence we talked about earlier. It's about making sure you're consistent in how you're delivering that message, whether it's a traditional sales channel, whether it's social media, whether it's your online e-commerce presence, an online catalog, a mobile application. Are you consistent in how you deliver that brand? And I think you've got to have people who watch that, you know, who are the, in BSC we call them the brand police, who watch the brand. What's the image we're presenting to our customers in any situation like that?
It's a little more anecdotal. Don't have the fact base to the answer. But I can tell you, we just had 85 of our university hires in a room as part of an onboarding experience, and you talk to them and you understand where they went to get their information about our company. It was not on our website as their first answer. It was LinkedIn, Facebook, actually LinkedIn, Twitter, then Facebook, and then, oh, by the way, we kind of browsed your site. So they really went there first in terms of social media about how they learn, and then once they kind of connected into me or our company, then they saw the other followers, and they actually followed some of the people that were attaching themselves to Schneider. It became, it's a little bit of, they created a community, and they looked at what we were tweeting as a way to really understand us. That's what they said. They say, we love your, beautiful website, but I learned more about you on Twitter than I do about on your website.
It sounds like a game changer. But I'd like to thank our panelists here. This was a great discussion. How about a round of applause for these guys? They really did well.